The moment long cautioned by analysts, critics, and whistleblowers has finally arrived, marking a dramatic turning point in South Africa's political landscape. According to documents verified by multiple legal experts and confirmed through diplomatic channels familiar with international judicial proceedings, an international criminal court has officially issued a formal arrest warrant for President Ramaphosa. The allegations laid out in this warrant are grave and far-reaching: large-scale money laundering, illicit financial flows, and the concealment of state assets through sophisticated international banking networks and offshore financial structures. This revelation is not mere rumor, nor baseless political propaganda, nor a misinterpretation of legal events. Rather, it is a formally sanctioned court document bearing Ramaphosa's name, containing signatures of judicial authorities, and now active with immediate effect. The implications of this development are severe and unprecedented. As a head of state, Ramaphosa technically enjoys certain diplomatic protections, yet these protections crumble when confronted by an arrest warrant issued by an international court mandated to prosecute financial crimes of global consequence. Should Ramaphosa travel beyond South Africa's borders into any country cooperating with this court's jurisdiction, he risks being detained upon arrival, creating the unthinkable scenario of a sitting president potentially facing imprisonment on foreign soil. This moment is not the result of sudden revelations, it is the culmination of years of investigative build-up. The story's roots stretch deep into a tangled financial maze involving undisclosed transactions, controversial property deals linked to Ramaphosa's closest associates, and suspicious cross-border movement of large sums of foreign currency that repeatedly triggered red flags, both domestically and internationally. The now notorious farm scandal, which first erupted after undeclared cash was discovered hidden inside furniture at Ramaphosa's game farm, served as the initial tear in the fabric of secrecy. At the time, Ramaphosa asserted that the cash represented legitimate payment from a livestock sale involving exotic animals, yet investigators soon found glaring holes, inconsistencies, and unexplained contradictions embedded in that explanation. That incident, once dismissed as a local controversy, now appears in hindsight to have been merely the visible tip of a much larger, deeply rooted financial iceberg. What the International Court now claims to have uncovered moves far beyond that farm and its puzzles. The allegations describe an intricate network of multi-million rand transactions funneled through shell corporations, obscure international holding companies, and accounts based in well-known tax havens, jurisdictions favored by those seeking to mask financial activity. These accounts, according to the court, are connected to companies and foreign entities that have received government contracts or conducted business with the South African state, creating what appears to be a chilling intersection between public office and private financial exploitation. By moving funds through multiple layers of financial intermediaries, anonymized corporate structures, and offshore jurisdictions, the court alleges that this money was effectively laundered to obscure its true origins, with the end product of the scheme being clean, untraceable wealth placed safely beyond domestic oversight. If these allegations hold, they paint the picture of a president implicated not only in corruption but in the deliberate engineering of a transnational financial pipeline designed to enrich himself and his allies while evading accountability. The confirmation of the arrest warrant has already begun sending shockwaves through diplomatic corridors around the world. Foreign governments now find themselves in an unprecedented predicament, whether to continue recognizing Ramaphosa as the legitimate head of state or to comply with international legal obligations that demand cooperation with the court. Some nations have quietly cancelled or postponed scheduled bilateral meetings, citing uncertainty surrounding South Africa's political stability. Investment agreements once seen as routine and secure are now on hold, while international financial institutions have begun reassessing the country's risk profile amid fears that governance instability could escalate into a broader economic crisis. Behind closed doors, diplomatic officials have reportedly discussed the possibility of travel restrictions on senior ANC figures, reflecting mounting global concern over South Africa's political and legal trajectory. Within South Africa's ruling party, the situation has spiraled into turmoil. Inside Luthuli House, emergency meetings have been convened by senior leaders, some of whom are now insisting that Ramaphosa step down immediately to prevent catastrophic damage to the party's reputation and to salvage whatever legitimacy the ANC still retains. Others, however, are rejecting the court's findings as yet another manifestation of foreign interference, claiming the arrest warrant is part of a Western-directed political strategy aimed at weakening the ruling party ahead of upcoming elections. Yet outside the realm of party politics, among ordinary South Africans, public patience has already worn thin. Many citizens once placed their hopes in Ramaphosa, believing he would bring an end to the corruption that flourished under previous administrations. Now, for many of them, he represents the very corruption he was meant to eliminate, and the ANC's credibility, already strained by years of scandal, appears to be reaching a breaking point. Ramaphosa himself has remained unusually silent in the face of the warrant. He has not addressed the nation directly, nor has he held a press briefing to defend himself or provide clarity. Instead, his legal team has released a thin, cautiously phrased statement denying all charges and accusing unnamed international actors of orchestrating interference in South Africa's internal affairs. But beyond the statement, silence lingers ominously. Even more telling are the president's recent behavior patterns. He has cancelled at least 2 planned international trips in recent weeks, with official statements offering vague explanations but no substantive details. Whether this is due to strategic caution, legal advice, or fear of immediate arrest, one thing is clear: Ramaphosa is staying firmly within South African borders, far from airports and foreign jurisdictions where handcuffs may await. With the warrant now confirmed, the road ahead is filled with uncertainty and complexity. International organizations are expected to apply escalating diplomatic pressure to compel Ramaphosa to present himself voluntarily before the court, a gesture that would require extraordinary political courage and legal confidence. If he refuses, and if South Africa's internal institutions fail to respond adequately, the country risks facing sanctions, travel bans, and diplomatic isolation. Parliament may find itself compelled to intervene. Opposition parties are already demanding an urgent vote of no confidence and pushing for an emergency parliamentary session to confront the crisis head-on. Should Ramaphosa remain in power without addressing the charges, South Africa may face deepening international isolation, a scenario incompatible with its economic needs, democratic obligations, and global partnerships. The ANC, therefore, stands at a historical crossroads. Its leadership must choose between protecting the career of a president under international criminal suspicion and protecting the survival of the party itself. The consequences of this decision will shape the nation's future for years to come. For South Africans, the mask has fallen. What was concealed is now exposed. A president once praised as a reformer now finds himself at the center of a global criminal investigation. The unfolding events will not be determined by Ramaphosa alone. They will be shaped by the choices of the people, the actions of civil society, and the courage of institutions to uphold the principles of accountability and democratic integrity. This moment, already being described by many as the most significant political crisis of the democratic era, demands vigilance, courage, and collective action. Those who believe in transparency, justice, and a government that serves its people must recognize that silence in such a moment becomes complicity. Those who desire a better future for their country must raise their voices, share information, mobilize their communities, and remain steadfast in demanding honesty and accountability from those in power. The world is watching, and history is being written in real time. In the days following the announcement of the international warrant, the atmosphere across South Africa grew increasingly tense, as though the country itself were holding its breath, waiting for the next unpredictable development. Analysts across the political spectrum began dissecting the implications of the unfolding crisis, debating how a nation already strained by economic hardships, rising unemployment, and social frustration could withstand the shock of its president being internationally implicated in financial crimes. Universities held emergency panel discussions, talk radio lines were jammed with callers expressing everything from disbelief to fury, and civil society organizations mobilized to demand transparency from every branch of government. The crisis ignited a wave of civic engagement unlike anything seen since the early years of the country's democracy. Citizens who had long grown disillusioned with politics suddenly found themselves discussing constitutional law, presidential succession rules, and the mechanics of international criminal jurisdiction in everyday conversations. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, power brokers were maneuvering frantically. Ministers who once projected unwavering loyalty to Ramaphosa were now quietly distancing themselves, signaling a shift in allegiance as they prepared for the possibility of leadership change. The upper tiers of the ANC were fractured, with some factions scrambling to find a compromise candidate who could stabilize the party, while others insisted that standing by Ramaphosa was the only way to avoid appearing weak before the electorate. The tension was palpable, and journalists reported unusual activity at government offices late into the night, closed-door meetings, unplanned briefings, and sudden departures of officials who normally avoided public attention. Internationally, commentators speculated about the potential long-term consequences if South Africa failed to cooperate with the court. Would global markets respond by downgrading the country's economic outlook? Would foreign allies reduce diplomatic engagement? Could the nation risk becoming a pariah in the eyes of the world, or because its leadership refused to confront a legal crisis head-on? These questions dominated headlines across major global newspapers, placing South Africa at the center of an unexpected geopolitical storm. Amid all this chaos, ordinary citizens grappled with a sense of betrayal. Many felt that the promise of renewal, once symbolized by Ramaphosa's rise, had crumbled into yet another chapter of corruption and disappointment. Yet others believed that this moment, painful as it was, might become a catalyst for genuine transformation, a reckoning that could force the country to confront the systemic failures that had allowed corruption to flourish unchecked for so long.